It's only entertainment.
Welcome back to the Talking Hedge. I'm Josh Kincaid, capital markets analyst and host of your Cannabis Business Podcast. My guest today, Robert Palma. He is the managing partner with Hemp OZ Fund. Robert, thanks for being with us at the Talking Hedge.
Thank you, Josh. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with your community.
Yeah. So we met down in Vegas. That was the beginning of Weed Week. Kicked that off on Sunday with the Alternative Investment Forum. And you were one of the 13 companies where I was an investor judge, watching pitch for 5.5 hours. Great day, solid events. But I do remember you out of all of that. So for everyone else who wasn't there, tell us a little bit about the Hemp OZ Fund, maybe how you got into the industry and what Hemp OZ Fund's all about.
Yeah, definitely. Got into Hemp OZ Fund 4 years ago. I moved from Florida to California to get into the cannabis industry, mostly because to get into the industrial hemp side of things. I'm a mechanical engineer, so I fell in love with all the applications that hemp can be used for. And when I got to California, the cannabis capital of the United States, there was no one talking about industrial hemp. It wasn't even on anyone's radar. So I got involved with some kind of cannabis business events and hosting those kind of events and networking. And 2 years, 2018 is when industrial hemp was legalized, and now I started seeing the conversation starting to pick up. And it was just still pretty amazing to see how nascent the industry was overall. The following year in 2019, I learned about the Opportunity Zone program, which is a fantastic federal program which creates tax incentives for investors to allocate their capital gains into low-income communities to spur economic activity. So I decided to combine these two, combine the Opportunity Zone program with the hemp industry to bring investments to the hemp industry, because that was the biggest problem that we had at the time, is investing in infrastructure for the hemp industry. And in end of 2020 is when I created the Hemp OZ Fund. And we're still currently the first and only industrial hemp focused Opportunity Zone fund. And our focus with the fund is that we're investing in the manufacturing and for the infrastructure and for manufacturing hemp products.
Okay. So we'll dive into exactly what you're manufacturing or focusing on, but just to kind of go back to something, I see a lot of CBD companies, I see a lot of hemp companies, but not a lot of them really understand like the business aspects and how to kind of stay in business with so much competition. Before I even get into the Opportunity Zone, you came from Florida. Tell me about your opinions about the Florida cannabis medical market. It's my opinion that it's really hard to have everything indoor, right? It's really expensive. There's a lot of humidity and issues with the environment there that could cause a tight flower to have powdery mildew, mold, and all these other issues. And when you compare that to a cheaper area like California, I'm wondering how those folks that have spent millions of dollars. Curaleaf, I think, had $1.1 billion in sales. So they are generating massive revenues, but how do they stay in business? I don't know. What's your opinion?
Yeah, I think the same time California was passing cannabis, their Prop 64, Florida had legislation on the books. And what I found out immediately was that Florida is very tending toward monopolistic tendencies, meaning because one of the requirements to grow cannabis was you had to have been a nursery for 30 years. So it's like immediately no one who you had to partner with a nursery, to even get into the door of the cannabis industry. And just a lot of other, rules in the legislation that made me feel like it's gonna be hard for a newcomer, especially someone like myself, to get into the cannabis industry in Florida. And it's also, it's also only medical. So and what medical terms that you had to, fall under, like you had to have severe disease, I'm not sure, Parkinson's, like something very severe, versus California, you can say I have pain or anxiety and you get a medical card. So, for those couple of different reasons, that's why, I kind of left Florida, got into California, just because I knew it was an easier market for me to get into.
I want to touch on that a little bit more, but back to the Opportunity Zone, low income areas, that's kind of the idea. Reminds me of social equity. Having been in banking, SBA loans didn't help anybody. I didn't have one SBA loan in my entire career get approved. I don't know anybody that it helped. I'm cautiously optimistic, although not hopeful, that the social equity will help anybody. Tell me though a little bit. My skepticism is not a part of the story, but tell me a little bit more about the opportunity zone. Exactly what is that, and how can people get involved? Because you already know what you're doing. You got the ground running. Sounds like you might even be able to help some people, if not directly, maybe through some kind of consulting or whatever, if they're not already familiar with it. But this is one of the things when you told me in Vegas, I was like, how have I not heard about this? So you're obviously on top of your stuff. Tell me about this opportunity zone a little bit more.
Yeah, it's a gem. You know, it's something that's been kind of kept hidden, I feel like, because it's not been marketed at all. But overall, the Opportunity Zone program was created. It was created actually during the Obama administration. We started doing the legislation on it, but it wasn't passed until the Tax Cut Jobs Act 2017. And basically, what it did was the federal government told every state governor to select. You get a certain number of zones based on your population, and select different municipalities that need need investments. You want to generate economic activity. So I believe California has the most, upwards like 840, followed by Texas, New York, and Florida. And the basic premise of these opportunity zones are just low income communities. Where the poverty rate is higher than the federal average. And the structure of the program is that investors can reallocate their capital gains into these zones to protect the capital gains, and then they're also investing it tax-free. So say we had $1 million, we invest in this opportunity zone, the growth of all that capital at the end of 10 years comes out 100% tax-free. So that's the major incentive, because there's no other program like that exists today. You have the 1031 exchanges, but those are deferral programs. This is actually a tax elimination program. And so my consultants help us create the Opportunity Zone Fund. They really dub the Federal Opportunities Program as likely the largest economic development program in the history of the United States for what it can do. And so my advice for people learning about it is definitely to understand how the program works and what is its incentive and what are the goals. The goals of the program is they basically, through the structure how the tax incentives work, they want to handles the financial side of it. So now the projects are really looking for more environmental, social benefits to their investment besides just the financial. That's the intention of the program. How much that is playing out to be true is not entirely 100% there yet. I think we're still in very early stages of it, and so a lot of it is like how we're going to generate profit. But I think as the program evolves and more people have capital gains, then there's actual opportunity zone funds. We'll start to see more investments towards the social side of it. But my advice would be to learn the program. Also talking to your state and local governments, they should know about the opportunity zones in the area. And I feel like what's most easiest is, so if you operate a fund, you have different compliance measures that you have to deal with IRS and a bunch of other documents. But anyone can set up an opportunity zone business, which is when the fund gets their money, they have a certain time frame to invest in the opportunity zone business. And so all that is creating a business and an opportunity zone, and you're eligible to receive investments. And so it's the most standard. Everyone's familiar with how to start a business without any of the extraness on top of it, opportunity zone wise. And it just makes it easier because managing a fund is complicated. I think people. I've been sold a fairy tale. I think my consultants do a little bit too job of like selling this fairy tale, like, oh, create a fund and all this money's gonna come at you and it's gonna be great. And I don't think that's the case. You're dealing with stiff competition. You're dealing with other fund managers, stockbrokers. It's a whole gamut, and you have to have that professional experience in managing funds. Not especially just in opportunity zone, while there are compliance measures on it.
Yeah, definitely trust factor, right? People aren't going to throw money at you. When we were in Vegas, there was another company that was pitching, and they were talking about 19,000% gains in crypto. Did you see that presentation?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So we followed up with them afterwards, and they couldn't explain any of it. So not only me, another investor judge, Dr. David Kunick, UCS Advisors, he talked to him as well, and they couldn't explain it to him to the point where he would understand it. So it's not just about returns. It's not just about the numbers. It's a lot about trust. The trust factor is huge. So if companies can get to know you and trust you and then implement your advice, that's one thing. It's kind of interesting, man. A little side note, I found that doing my own consulting, I charge $250 an hour. It's not cheap, but I have to basically explain and prove like everything what I'm doing. But yet there's attorneys that have carte blanche at $650 an hour and they don't get asked anything. And I think that it's the trust factor. There's people who believe that attorneys have this fiduciary duty where I don't. They don't think I have that, like my reputation doesn't mean anything. So I've got to find like this industry is kind of fascinating. But it all boils down to trust, really. At the end of the day, it's gonna be trusted brands, trusted influencers, a huge trust factor. Having said all of that, if businesses are interested in utilizing your consulting services, what would you advise them to execute on? Would you advise them to get into production of hemp, processing of hemp with brands, retailing, selling of brands, or ancillary? Like within this opportunity zone, what are some realistic opportunities?
Well, within the opportunity zone program, the opportunities are endless. You can create a movie theater opportunity zone, a yard sale, selling cars, like the.
So this doesn't have to be hemp at all?
No, yeah, for opportunity zone, they can literally be anything. I think as the market is today, about 85% of all opportunity zone funds are real estate focused. So developing like condominiums, multifamily, some hotels. The other 15% are business focused. And of those, like I said, we're the only industrial hemp focused, but there's actually some crypto opportunity zone funds, some other like I've seen graphic art kind of business where basically bought a factory or kind of like a big office building and they retrofitted it to be like a graphic design hub and stuff like that. And so it just creates opportunities in local communities to provide jobs. So yeah, the only stipulation is you can't have what they call sin businesses, which is like selling alcohol or no like racing or no golf carts. I mean, no golf events kind of things. So yeah, besides that, it's pretty much endless.
Okay. Not to get into the weeds too much, but do you know with the tax advantages of the opportunity fund, you mentioned it's similar like a 1031 exchange when the money at the very end is tax free. But let's say I have an investment, because right now Biden's talking about eliminating the 1031, which makes this even better because you have less opportunities for similar events or tax advantages. So do you happen to know if like I buy a commercial building, I sell it and I invest in this opportunity zone, do you know if that transaction gets taxed first before it gets in an opportunity zone, or is it a vehicle in which to take money and have it tax free first and at the end? I know you're not a CPA, but I'm wondering if you happen to know.
Yeah, it's a second one you're mentioning. So if I just sold a real estate property, all the capital gains I've acquired, I can protect it by putting an opportunity zone fund. And what that does is it protects it and it gives you a 5-year deferral. So you don't pay taxes until 2026. Or if you invest that in this year is actually an additional 10% deduction. So say I made $1 million of capital gains, I wouldn't pay that $1 million capital gains tax until 2026. And with the 10% deduction this year, I only pay tax on $900,000 of it. And then all the growth of that capital, that $1 million and the 10 years comes out 100% tax free.
That's really dope. That's really, really cool. That's a huge advantage for a lot of companies that haven't utilized Act 60 in Puerto Rico, for example. For people who don't know, it's a huge opportunity to utilize when you have a territory like Puerto Rico that doesn't have congressional representation. Since you can't have taxation without representation, you pay 0 federal taxes. This is providing that same thing without having to move to Puerto Rico. So that's a phenomenal opportunity. Are you finding that folks in California are embracing that, or are they just trying to stay afloat?
As in terms of California, like the government.
Yeah, California specifically seems to be like they have this massive transition right now from medical to rec, and the consolidation and competition and everything is heating up. Do you find that the conversations of talking about tax advantages and things like the opportunity zone are conversations people want to have, or are you too early to the game?
I would say it's another conversations I'm looking for. Like I was really looking for the opportunity program to be opportunity for low-income communities to really like bring business and development into their communities. Unfortunately, just how the way the game works, it's like I said, the opportunity zone program is not marketed very well. So the
Mhm.
people that do know about it tend to be the more wealthier, real estate focused kind of guys,
Mhm.
and so they're using it to develop, proper waterfront properties, or like nice hotels in Santa Monica, for example. That's very rare, right? Because most of the zones are in low-income communities, but
Mhm.
even the nicest neighborhoods, like downtown LA, there's still opportunities on land. They're using that to build some type of skyscraper, and
Mhm.
so it's unfortunate, but I think like I said, it's being developed. It's like now the focus is starting to shift from like, okay, now we can do opportunities of program. The first wave went out. It's kind of like ICOs, if anyone's familiar with that. Like the first
Mhm.
wave went through, made their money, and now it's more focused like what's the impact we can actually make now, opportunity zones. I think we're starting to see that now because like I said, this was the big push this year. I'll say that in 2020, you had probably like 95% were all real estate based, very few opportunity zone businesses. And now we're at 15% opportunities on businesses. So we're starting to see that shift from real estate focus to now creating more opportunities. That's what you get when you create a business. You create jobs, you create growth for the community. And so we're starting to see that shift, but it hasn't met my satisfaction yet.
Mhm. Are you finding anybody that is curious about hempcrete or industrial hemp applications? I know that obviously real estate is huge right now. Commercial, residential is on the West Coast is going gangbusters. But are you finding anybody that wants to take a look at utilizing the excessive amount of hemp that we have in the marketplace for industrial applications like Hempcrete?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Hemcrete has exploded. It's in the past 2 years. In 2019, so 2018 was the big CBD season, right? So like a lot of farmers just
Mhm.
overproduced the hemp CBD crop, and that left a surplus of stocks because there's just no use for it. And so it was like 90% plus going to waste. I saw it last year though, and this year, we're seeing a lot of different people that are now processing those stocks from the hemp CBD plant, and using it for hempcrete. And I can't speak to the volume size of it, but back in 2019, I don't think there was probably one or two U.S. based operators that are actually making hemp herd, and now you're probably over somewhere near a dozen. So that side of it has exploded, just because it's relatively easy and the benefits are astronomical. The installation, the properties, antimicrobial. That's not due to the hemp per se; it's due to the lime binder that they use with it. But the fireproof factor of it is actually playing a really big role in the success of hempcrete, and we're starting to see it, actually be taken considered um, in more like commercial applications, like actually doing multi-floor buildings using hemp. So it's interesting to see the development of it, but we're still so new. Just to give like a perspective, so right now we probably have somewhere near a dozen hemp processors that convert the hemp stalks to all the raw materials. In comparison, corn and soy, let's just say corn, they have upwards of 1,000 processors across the country. So we're at a dozen. So as it makes it very challenging one for farmers to even grow it, because where are they going to process it? And the industry can't grow. Ford can say, I want to use hemp fiber in our cars, because where are they going to get the material from? So it's that chicken and egg problem. That's what we're hoping to solve by building the infrastructure, building more of these processing facilities in the country to help farmers and help the industry grow.
What do you get excited about with industrial hemp? What was it about it that got you into the industry? I mean, with me right now, I think 3D printing and the utilization of graphene is really interesting, because with just like between 1 and 10% graphene to a hempcrete will increase, I think, the stability by like 300% or something. I don't quote me on that, but it's something stupid.
Yeah.
So that's exciting to me, is with all of these ridiculous prices, because earth doesn't cost that much. Like they say, oh, it's because the land, there's not enough land. Go to Colorado and tell me there's not enough land. That's
Yeah.
ridiculous. Wyoming, nobody lives in Wyoming. It's totally vacant. Uh, yeah, and trees and bricks and all this stuff does not cost that much. So the margin is insane, and I'm really looking forward to disruption, not only in banking, but other bloated industries like housing. And I think that 3D printing and technology and hempcrete and graphene can really disrupt the hell out of the markets, and that excites me. What are you excited about?
Yeah, I think so. The most exciting thing to me is actually just all of it. So in 2015-ish, I realized the world is going towards sustainability. At that time, innovation And so I predicted like of producing it so greatly. I just got to. Are you still hearing?
Yeah, you cut out.
Okay. I
Yeah,
got to
you
sign
cut out.
my Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, so the part that was exciting me was that how hemp can be used for, like I said, hempcrete, clothing, cars, food, and it's the fact that it goes all into all these different industries that would make the volume of the hemp crop so so large that the cost of producing will be minimal, and that'd be a great way to replacing all the other intensive processes like to make concrete or to make the products that plastic go into cars and glass fibers. And that's like on a high level overview, right? Just like, oh, pure volume wise, what would be the lowest cost competitor? But it's also the fact that hemp not only can be the lowest cost, but also it does it better, than the alternative, right? Like if you look at the concrete example, like for homes, it's the better insulator, right? It has more properties that beneficial, like fireproof, and like I was mentioned earlier, even with the comparing hemp fiber to all natural fibers, hemp is one of the most superior of all of them. It's not the best, I'm gonna be honest, not the strongest or of all fibers, but it's a leading it's one of the leading ones. Same thing with food wise, even the nutritional profile of the hemp seeds is amazing. It's has a perfect balance of omega-3 and 6s. And so the fact that it can do all these things, but it does all of it better than the traditional materials. And that to me is the most exciting, just the overview. But I mean, now getting to a specific market of it, I was fascinated with electric vehicles back in 2014 with Tesla coming out and everything. And so I had my mindset of making electric vehicles. And then only later I learned about industrial hemp, and then really excited. At the time I was working in Formula One doing custom Formula cars, and we use carbon fiber a lot. The biggest problem with carbon fiber is the cost of using it. And so I learned about hemp, and basically industrial hemp, you can make these same kind of composites that are, so obviously carbon fiber is super strong, super light, but in comparison to glass fiber, hemp fiber is 10 times lighter, and it's also way cheaper to manufacture. So to me, it was like hemp fiber composite can open the doorway into like, changing all the steel and we see in cars into making it into lighter structures. So that was exciting, also in airplanes. And then obviously that hemp battery research came out, I think in 2015, saying a hemp battery was 8 times more powerful than lithium. So I was like, well, it's getting really crazy now. Like now we start combining the the hemp fiber composites and the hemp batteries, we can really make like the ultimate hemp electric vehicle super race car kind of a deal. And so that's like my focus. That's my long-term goal, is to actually spin off and make like a kind of like a Koenigsegg, people are familiar, basically high-end supercar that's a hemp and electric vehicle focus.
Yeah, I'm surprised that hasn't made its way to the masses yet, because in 2015 the Marijuana Show season 2 had a guy that had hemp. His car was made out of hemp, and I think the fuel was also hemp, and it didn't really go anywhere. I mean, the media loved it, but investors, it seemed like too big of a scale. They didn't really know. It's kind of like ethanol. We're like, oh, I don't really know about growing fuel. And so there's kind of been this separation between functionality and then the realization of it. And using packaging as an example, I think hemp could really kind of just destroy the whole packaging industry. But there's nuances, like with pre-rolls, there's a lot of waste. You go up to Canada and they think it's a new iPod every time or whatever, where you open it up and there's another box and it's like these Russian dolls where they're box inside of a box inside of a box. And you're like, just give me the product already. This is insane. So I understand that they're trying to give you this experience or whatever, but it's at a cost of, too much waste. So how do you blend minimalism with functionality? And I think cannabis could, not cannabis, hemp packaging could solve that. There's more nuances. Like if you have cardboard and a pre-roll, that's going to dry it out. So you kind of have to have this plastic composite hemp material, but then does it biodegrade? All of these issues. How do you walk your clients through all of that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of I don't really dive into the specifics when we talk about hemp products, mostly because we just don't know. Like we haven't tested what hemp packaging looks like, how it degrades, and so I think that's a big problem in the hemp industry. Is a lot of promises made, a lot of memes, infographics, how hemp can, is stronger than steel or you can biodegrade plastic, and it's like, where have you seen that? Who's actually making that product where we've been tested that and to what standard? And so I think that's a big problem in our industry where it's like a lot of she said, he said, or just quotes essentially what hemp can do. So we just like to stick to what we know works. And so hemp is not new, right? We've been using it for thousands of years in the past. And so we have that record. It's only been 80 years of prohibition that we haven't been using it. And so that's just in the United States, but also hemp is already being used in Europe and Asia. And so we like to use that as our best example. So like right now, 9 to 10 of the major automotive companies in Europe are already using hemp in their vehicles today. And so we believe that that what they're using out there, the reason why they're using hemp is because it's lighter and stronger, and it also reduces the carbon footprint of their vehicles. So that same trend is going to come to America once the opportunity for hemp fiber to come, is available. We'll do it. And so that's what we tend to focus on is like, examples already being done, and then we just bring that to the United States. Just simple introductions to how we can use hemp, and staying away from all the fairy tales of how great it will be.
Well, walk me through a typical client interaction. They have, a transaction that's in process, and they're looking at maybe they want to get into industrial hemp, or they're looking for a tax-free investment opportunity, whatever the situation is. Talk to me, run me through a typical scenario of your client start to finish.
Yeah, so we don't really do consulting on the hemp side. Like someone wants to get in the hemp industry, we don't really guide them. What I learned when it comes to that is it needs to be something that's very like self-driven, something inside you that has a calling to solve this particular problem in the hemp industry, and you're gonna go out and figure it out. And once you've gone there, I've figured it out, done the testing, and proved to some degree that it works. Now we're interested in in investing in you as a hemp business. When it comes to our clients and investors, looking to the opportunity zone space and investing in Hemp OZ Fund, we basically showing the problem. Thankfully we have great data out there. New Frontier Data published an article in December 2020, basically saying like, despite the great potential of the hemp industry, the largest problem is the lack of processing infrastructure. Mm-hmm. And so we stick to that. It's not us, not a biased opinion. This is New Frontier Data, the leader in cannabis analytics. And also just showing them examples, like I said, like the European example, how it's being used in other places, and America doesn't have that infrastructure. But given the opportunity to have that infrastructure in America, we believe we could become, a dominating force in the hemp industry. And I hear this a lot. So we have contacts in other countries, like in Europe, for example, that they see the hemp industry every day. They understand how the hemp is being grown, how it's being processed and sold to the manufacturers. And what he always tells me is that basically that he believes once America applies its strengths in capital and innovation and technology to the hemp industry, the game will forever change. America will dominate the hemp industry once these three things come into play. And that's what we're excited about. That's what made America strong, and we're excited to bring it back.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. We have a lot of innovation. Just look at concentrates in California and how they've led the industry for so long. Like Morocco and Lebanon have phenomenal hash, right? But the culture in California specifically has just been around for decades. And I don't really see that going anywhere, even though there may be 5 cents a gram coming out of Colombia and or Peru that could disrupt the wholesale flower markets. It's still the culture and the US. It's kind of like the whole Hollywood effect that's really going to drive all of that. That's what I think.
Yeah. Like the same thing. My friends say that the cannabinoid market in the United States is on a whole different level. Like there's no other country in the world that has developed the cannabinoid profiles that we have with our genetics here. And it's, a prop to our farmers and, innovation and technology they've used to done what they've done. I think the whole Delta 8, as crazy it is from a regulatory standpoint, that to me is fascinating how someone able to pull converting CBD isolate into Delta 8, which is very similar to THC, and getting around the loophole. The law says, Delta 9 THC is prohibited. And so the chemists did what they did, and they found an amazing loophole. I mean, all of it in the day is all medicine, in the eyes of the law, it's, it's not, but I mean, all of they do because they have a patent on it, you know, showing how the medical properties of cannabis, but not getting into that. But yeah, I mean, it just shows, you know, American innovation and what we do, and we do it best, honestly.
Do you think the hemp bill in 2018 would have been rewritten from 2014 and passed the way it is if they knew about D8? For Delta 8 is psychoactive in the same way that THC or Delta 9 is, but it's a light version. So instead of having like a shot of tequila, it's having like a Bud Light, if you want to make that analogy. Yeah, what's your take?
Yeah, honestly, I think if Delta 8 was, you know, happening at the same time they wrote the law, they probably wouldn't have done it. Just knowing how everything could explode, but I think everything happens for a reason. I think the only reason why a Delta 8 even existed was because the law was written that way. You know, created that opportunity. Is like, okay, well, it says only Delta 9. How can we make something very similar to it without it? And so, I mean, it was crazy overall. I love to see how the industry, you know, developed. You know, it's fascinating to me when like I said, when hemp came legalized, it basically legalized every part of cannabis besides THC, Delta 9 THC, and that to me was like, you know, that was it. The whole game's over. Like, you unleashed all the cannabinoids, everything about, you know, the amazingness of cannabis besides one molecule of it, and arguably I think that molecule has, you know, had a great impact for, you know, medicine and also spiritual development. But to me, it's just a small fragment of everything that needs to happen, everything that, you know, can happen with it from the pharmaceutical perspective, industrial perspective, and all that just got passed in one go. Without much thought into what was done. I think it was just like, oh yeah, it seems to be safe. Let it, you know, let's just pass it like it's a corn. And it's, I mean, for us, it's great. You know, we're living the life. You know, all we have to do now is actually create the standards, right? How hemp can be used as a, you know, for hemp fiber composites or hemp building materials, hemp paper, like all these standards have to be created. And that's the only barrier is actually just, you know, the process and investment to standardizing, you know, hemp products.
Do you think it'll be standardized or normalized once it's commoditized? What is the moment? Is it when I'm gonna call marijuana, when the marijuana is legal and the banking industry allows it? Is that what is going to be normalized, or is it the commoditization of hemp in everyday use that makes it so normal? What is it in your mind that brings this to normalization?
Yeah, I think it's the commoditization of it, and as it enters mainstream in a non-sexy manner, like this automotive companies trying to use hemp in the cars, and it's like, okay, I drive every day to work with, you know, this cannabis plant in my car. Everything seems to be fine. Nothing, you know, like, I'm not getting high from it or any of that stuff. I think as that starts to happen, people become more comfortable with hemp, especially when people start wearing it. When clothing has some mixture of hemp into it, it just really destigmatizes, like, oh, this is harmless. Like, why is this even legal? I think that will really break down the stigma. Although I think the cannabinoids market, you know, like pharmaceutical and getting cannabinoids and medicine practice, that's gonna be way harder barrier to break, because now you're actually ingesting it, and so there's a big worry or a big if of what is it going to do to me, and someone has to do the research and, you know, figuring it out. And I think that's going to be a big challenge. But I think industrial hemp as a commodity getting in, you know, into textiles and construction, I think is going to open the door, so we can open that conversation more of like how we ingest the cannabinoids. And a really good example of that is actually with hemp feed for cattle and animals. And so, like, there's actually a big conversation now is like, does the cannabinoid content in the hemp plant, you know, go into the animals as they eat the feed, and then we eat that same cannabinoids? Like, are we going to get high from eating our cows and chickens? And like, that's a current like dilemma. Like, we can't have hemp feed because they think that might happen, which is not true, right? Because we know European is doing it already, and so they have the data. But again, it's like bringing it to the United States. The United States person has to do the same testing and figure it out. And but like I said, I think the commoditization of it is going to, as the lowest cost alternative to traditional products, is going to open the doorway. And then the further testing of why hemp is so much better than the traditional is going to actually open it up to getting to the more harder to break industries like cannabinoids.
Yeah, I find it interesting. The dry ECS or endocannabinoid system has been dry for so long because cattle used to eat hemp, right? And so now that they haven't, we don't have hemp and CBD and other cannabinoids in our system, and it's dry. So I think that's causing a lot of other issues. Maybe that's a different podcast for another day. How have you seen the industry develop? Your perspective is unique in that you've seen a lot of stuff in California, including direct-to-consumer sales in California, bypassing rec shops. Your perspective from Florida, California is unique. Where's the cultural differences, East Coast, West Coast, and how are the businesses different?
Yeah, I mean, so it was, so in Florida, I could speak to Florida, not entirely the East Coast. Weed was like very like, somewhat like, as treated as a Schedule I drug. Let's just, put it that way. And it was like scary if you were doing it. You had no idea what it was doing to your brain, and if you did it as a young age, now you're destined to be a criminal. Like that was the image I was, pictured and portrayed, and especially in school, it was the same kind of feeling. Like, oh, if we knew that person was doing that kind of drug, you don't want to be with them. And once I learned a lot, it was like, reefer madness, a lot of it was made up. And I consumed it myself. I realized this is like so much way safer and better for me than alcohol. Like I can, smoke a lot and not feel any effects the next day. But when we drink a lot, you just feel dead, right? Hangover. So that kind of weird mix in the East Coast was like, if you did it, you don't talk about it, only with your friends. On the West Coast, it completely blew my mind. When I first got here, you can literally smell it on the streets while you're driving. I was like, wow, people are just doing it openly. I go to a nightclub and people are smoking in the back, and like everyone's sharing, like strangers just sharing with other people. I was like, it's a whole different culture. It took me a long time to actually like wrap my head around it, like how open it was out here. But I think that, that's that was beautiful about it. It really destigmatized like what this plant meant for me. It became, in Florida, it was a recreational drug, I'm just like, oh, I just want to get high and feel it. And when I got to California, I realized it's more medicinal, just connecting with people, and also just like what the cannabis plant does, bringing people together. And so I kind of realized that as that's like unique aspect in California, as like it's treated that way, as it's medicinal, but like in a spiritual sense, I'm connecting with people and strangers over a connection of like, we all love this plant, and then, relationships fruit from there.
What advice do you have for businesses getting into the industry? You've seen it from both sides, conservative and not. When someone's coming into the industry, whether it's an emerging market like Florida or an existing market like California, I would imagine there's kind of two separate or different kinds of strategies. But regardless, what advice would you have for somebody coming in looking for advice, consulting, or they've got some extra cash that they're looking for, like an opportunity zone specific style of investment opportunity?
Yeah, I mean, so I would say, if you're looking to get into the hemp industry, create your own business, I would do the same thing, I did. You got to go out and network, got to go out to these cannabis events and understand the industry that you're trying to enter, understand the people, who they are, what's the culture like, what are their problems, and then from there, you can kind of get an understanding of like what I can do, what can I apply my skill set from my past and helping the people that are here. And so that's why I did for the first couple of years, just going to these events, networking, hosting events, and understanding the pain points. And from there, I created the business. I realized like we got all these great entrepreneurs that want to create hemp businesses, but there's no capital, and it's bridging that gap was extremely difficult. And it's also because there's no established market. It's not like you're entering something that's really understood. There's no revenue opportunity. Like, oh, we can't compare like, oh, someone else doing this much revenue. If we create a company, we can do X. There's really no data points to go off of. And so that's why I really, like a lot of the opportunities zone program kind of handles that financial side of things. Now for investors getting into this space, take your time. I mean, I think you're going to, a lot of businesses, paint this, like I said, fairy tale, like, amazing returns, all stuff like that. And I think a lot of people in the industry are going towards that way. I would work with entrepreneurs that understand the risk side of the hemp industry, understanding how it's new and all these are going to create challenges, and understanding how nascent industries grow and the merger acquisition process of new industries. I think that a lot of people in the cannabis industry got wrecked in that way, just because, you know, created a lot of businesses, and they understand what once capital comes in, the whole, you know, the structure of everything changes, you know.
All right. So with that, where can people find you at? Are you on social media? Are you you have a website? If people are interested in getting a hold of you for a variety of reasons, how can they do that?
Yeah, so I mean, my best platform is LinkedIn. I got, you know, most following there, and I'm on that pretty much every single day now. So it's, you know, my name, Robert Palma, should be up there. My title's supply chain or managing partner, Hemp OZ Fund. That's how you spell it, Hemp OZ Fund. We also have our website. It's hempozfund.us. So you can learn more about our investment projects, our team, and everything will be on there.
Okay. Yeah. And we'll put Robert's LinkedIn contact information in the description in the show notes to check him out there. But I think with that, we're going to have to roll this one up. So I want to thank my guest, Robert Palma. He is the managing partner at the Hemp OZ Fund. Robert, appreciate you being with us at the Talking Hedge.
Thank you, Josh. It was great. I appreciate the conversation.
Yeah, likewise. All right. I'm Josh Kincaid. This is the Talking Hedge. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, or don't. And I'm out. Don't forget to smash that like button on your way out and check out these other videos that we've got.